Good job, Munchkin. Good job. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. My name is Lauren Smith, and I am married to Kaloma. I'm also Henry's mom, and I work in higher education. I've been working at Stanford University for almost 8 years now, and I've been in higher education for roughly 15 years, specifically working in fundraising and helping to raise money for Stanford right now.
I'm Kaloma Smith. I am the senior lead pastor of the University AME Zion Church. Happily married to Lauren, dad of Henry. That's it.
Our meeting story is kind of funny. We met in Mount Vernon, New York, at our church, Greater Centennial AME Zion Church. We love that church in Mount Vernon. We're both from New York. We both attended Greater Centennial for years. But it was a big church, about 6,000 members, 3 services, and we didn't know each other. I don't think we attended the same services. So at one point, Kaloma came up to me. He was the president of the young adult ministry. And it was just like after church one day, he randomly approached me. I didn't know him, and he said, I'd love to get your phone number so I can invite you to our young adult events. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. I was a young adult at the time, and just gave him my number, which till this day I think is kind of like funny because I didn't really used to give my number out like that. But it worked because he got it, and fast forward, I was like, I found out I never attended that event, the young adult event. You know, he was actually, asking me for my number so that he could ask me out.
That's close enough to the actual events. It sort of went like that, but it's good. Yeah, I mean, it was great. I saw my wife singing in the choir. Beautiful voice, beautiful woman. Did ask for the number for the young adult event, but I did follow up out of personal curiosity, just just to see if she would want to go to dinner after like a meeting at church, and we ended up going out and we ended up hanging out, and it was all good. It's a really good situation.
Yeah.
14 years, I think 14.
15, I don't remember.
It's almost 20 years. So
Yeah.
we're heading towards 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's a good situation. I don't think we ever decided we wanted a child. I think we had a great life going. And one of our things that we did as a church was we started doing foster care. So, us and I think maybe 2 or 3 other people in the church started taking foster care classes, right?
Yeah, but I'll back all the way up and say that when we got married, we definitely wanted to have kids, but it wasn't I don't know if priority is the right word, but it wasn't like at the forefront. We were happily married, we liked being together, but we always knew, even from like when we got married, that it would be wonderful to have children, and if not, fine, but if we could, that's great. So I guess it was always something, oh, this would be great to have, but I don't know if we ever decided. But then yes, moving fast forward, then yeah, we started, someone invited us to a foster care class. Another pastor.
Paul Taylor invited us. And then we got intrigued about foster care then. It wasn't like we went looking about foster care. I think at that point in time I was trying to figure out one thing the church could be passionate about, and he invited us and we went. And Lynn Chow
Yes.
I think she was amazing in explaining the needs for foster children.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with the foster care system because I have cousins that have been in foster care, and I have family members who have been foster care parents. So that's when we started really being interested in becoming foster care parents.
And we went through the process. I think the process took us, it's supposed to take like 6 months. I think it took us like 18 months to go through. Like, it wasn't like it wasn't like we were like laser focused, right? And it was interesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but even up until the point where we ended up with Henry, I think we had just got certified like a week earlier.
Yeah, we'll go to the next question. Yeah.
But to sum it up, it was a nice to have, and we had talked about having kids, but like even with we started the situation as just trying to be foster parents that could help kids in transition, not any like idea that we would have a kid of our own in the process.
Yeah, right. But we were open to that too.
We were open to that, but it wasn't like the main goal. Yeah.
So we first found out about Henry. So like Kaloma said, we became licensed foster care parents because we definitely started the process. We weren't sure. We were committed to finishing the process, and you can be an inactive foster care parent. You can be licensed and be inactive, and then decide when to activate it. So we said, let's just finish the process. We already started it. We were committed to the process, and then let's see like how this shakes out like after we're licensed. So we became licensed in April of 2019, and then we received a call in July of 2019, so just a few months after we became licensed, and that's when we heard about Henry. Someone called us, and I won't go into too many details for confidentiality for Henry's story. I'm sure he would love to tell it one day when he can. But we did receive a call that asked us if we would like to foster a baby for a temporary amount of time. So.
They definitely.
For me, it was about for a few
2 weeks, 3 weeks was the time. And another interesting part, when they call for foster children, it's usually like one of the social workers. And the interesting thing about the social worker was, in her system, they didn't have us approved, but they had called somebody else that really helps with foster children, and they said, no, you need to check because the Smiths are a good family to foster. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of meant to be.
It was like serendipity.
Yes.
Serendipity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll say this, it's a very different process. Foster care and adopting is very different for each family because it can be very unique to the child, and it's
your
very
family
different
situations.
Yes. So for Henry's in particular, we thought we were only going to foster him for a few weeks, and then he would be reunited with his birth family, because that is foster care. The goal is to reunite. Correct. He ended up staying with us for a long time, even after a year, and he was 7 days old when we got him. So at some point in the foster care process, the parental rights are terminated. Then the child can be adopted. So and I think adoption is a beautiful process. There are different ways to adopt. We adopted out of foster care, but once those parental rights are terminated, and I don't remember the length of time but then the child can be adopted, and we decided that we wanted to adopt Henry. If we didn't, then they would have found. But that's kind of the adoption process for foster care, and that was for Henry. So, we picked Henry up when he was 7 days old from the hospital. He had been with us the entire time, which is which is wonderful for us, wonderful for Henry, because a lot of foster children are usually not in the same household, and that's and that's also traumatic. That's a part of the trauma that they experience. So we were really grateful that we were able to adopt Henry, and we wanted him to. He was for sure, like, just the fabric of the family. And I'll just say this quick thing. I find this funny. I always tell this story. So we adopted Henry in 2021. At court, when you adopt children, you can invite family members, you can invite friends, and kind of fill the courtroom so that they can celebrate with you the adoption. We couldn't bring. It was during COVID, the COVID pandemic, and we could not invite anyone. And so the judge allowed families to invite people via Zoom.
We packed it out.
And so and I just always tell this story. We had so many people on Zoom that, after our Zoom with Henry, the judge decided, like, okay, 10 people is the max.
Yes.
We kind of broke their Zoom.
We had like 60, 70 people, and they only had like 50 people on the account.
Yeah, or less. I don't know. I think, but when you ask about, the adoption process, I think of that too, and how beautiful that was in the courtroom, and having people there to celebrate with us, even though it was on Zoom.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is fostering a child is not a guarantee for adoption, and I think we had probably one of the most painless processes from beginning to end. It was, everything that we had really good social workers. The thing that I also learned in the fostering and adoption process is that the stereotypes and the things that you think about foster and adoptive families. Every family has unique challenges, and sometimes it's not because of love that the child is given up for adoption. So vilifying families that give up children for adoption, I think, is one thing that I've been very cognizant of telling people. Like, don't vilify parents, don't vilify the family of these kids, because they're often hard situations that aren't because of anybody's negligence or habits or anything. So I think that's a big deal. I think the one thing I learned in the adoption process is the state is very careful in what the requirements for an adoptive parent. They do a lot of background checking. They do a lot of vetting. They really do value these kids, and these social workers don't get enough credit for how much they try to protect these children.
I agree.
So, I mean, the adoption process is challenging, because at the end of the day, I remember us having this conversation. There is this idea of, like, somebody's born into a family and you want that to sort of work out. But then you realize that because that didn't work out for whatever the reason, you now have to step in, and it's a delicate balance, so adoption by itself is a beautiful thing, but it's also a sad thing, because there's two tensions happening there.
Yes, very true. Our life's been glorious since then. Henry is just full of life and joy. You might even hear him in this documentary, because he is very jolly. I mean, it's honestly, I'm so glad that we said yes. I'm so glad that things worked out, and I don't know. I don't have any words. It's just been really good. I feel very blessed. Not for myself, but just happy that all worked out for Henry, and that he's really a happy child. He's really a happy baby.
I'll say, we had been together for more than a decade before a child came in, and I think having children changes your priorities, changes your focus. I think it even changes your life. I will say this: I think it became very interesting. We took in Henry at a very interesting time, um, because we got him in August, and by the next March we were in shelter in place. So like just growing up is very different now, and just being is different. So
We got him in July.
you know, we got him in July.
Yeah. That's okay.
And I think just just having a child during COVID and watching like the innocence and energy, you know, it's a beautiful thing. It can be trying at times because, you know, being inside a sheltering place with a young child is challenging because they have
Tiring.
and they have a lot of energy. But I think it was such a godsend that we had like this like ball of life in the house when everything in the world was going crazy and
Yeah.
shutting down, and you know the world was coming to an end, and Henry'd be like, "Can I go on my bike?" You know, like it's just one of those amazing moments. Um, and also, you know, you realize like watching a human grow up is interesting. You know, we just went through a phase where I think in August he was 3 words, and now we're in December and he has a full talking vocabulary. And just watching that unfold is like one of the most amazing things.
And just watching, yeah, and just watching life through a child's eyes is really beautiful. So, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so I'll say this: I once a child cannot control the situation they're born in. I've also learned working not just with Henry, but working with the church and Help One Child and hearing stories, that adoption and foster care are absolutely critical. Sometimes you have parents and families that have a bottomless level of love, but have issues and situations, whether it's capacity financially, XYZ. And I'm not talking about like this, oh, his mother's this and that. They just don't have the ability or capacity at that moment to take care of a child. It is not a knock against them, but in this world, it's expensive and as many different things as you need to take care of a child. Some people don't have the capacity, and just coming alongside and being there and being a part of a child's story. You know, a critical thing that my wife said very early on when we were talking early about the adoptive process is that this is Henry's story, and God has allowed us to partner and be part of it. We're not saving anybody. We're not interjected. We're not this. We are just grateful to be a partner in his story and walk the journey with him. And I think it's so critical that as people go into foster care and adoption, or however you do it, that the family doesn't look at it as we're getting a child, we're rescuing a child, we're saving a child. They look at it more from a heart place of we get to be part of this child's story, and whatever the reason is, let's just not vilify the person on the other side.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And yes, one thing that this has taught me, and I think the important thing is that, you know, everything, it's not black and white. And so someone may not physically be able to take care of a child, but they can emotionally and mentally have the desire to. So there's so many layers. Like, I emotionally want this, but I physically can't. So that I think is super important, because I think we forget about that. Like, people, the emotion behind it and the feelings that people have, birth parents in particular. So I think adoption is beautiful. Like I said, it's been around in my family, and of course I've seen it where it's unofficial, and you know, people and someone has just stayed with an aunt for a long period of time, right? And so I've also seen one of our friends stay with another friend, and he helped raise him, and the friend and our friend called him dad. And you know, so we've just seen some really beautiful stories. And you know, I think you said it best, like doing it from the heart and out of love. But I'll say that you don't have to officially adopt or officially foster to love on a child and to
Be there.
yeah, to be there. And because I truly believe in the village, especially now that I'm a mom, it really does take a village. So I think that you can impart on children in any kind of way, especially today. So it doesn't have to be that very official to make a difference and just, you know, and bless and be a part of a child's life and bless them.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you,
Amazing.
Brown Media.
Brown Media, you got it.